Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, the market cycle ROI, and the idea that Bitcoin's market cycles are lengthening. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Remember, we also do have the holiday sale on the premium list. You can find that at intothecryptoverse.com, and you can lock in the low rate as long as you do not cancel, and that will run through the end of the year. So basically another week or so. Let's go ahead and jump in. So Bitcoin's market cycles, as we have previously measured them from the market cycle bottom, clearly shows that the cycles lengthen, okay? And that is a very common misconception, in my opinion, that the cycles are 4 years. In fact, the only 4-year cycle was the last market cycle. And so you could argue that there's some recency bias for people thinking that Bitcoin has to operate on fairly well-defined 4-year cycles. I've always had a hard time believing that, considering, generally speaking, the entire market, all of market participants can't just know when the cycle peak's going to be. Markets just don't work like that, right? I mean, a lot of people miss it. And so if the idea is everyone sells their Bitcoin in December, it's more or less not going to happen because what ends up happening is people front run it. And so we never reach those crazy valuations that we once saw. So all those predictions that you saw earlier this year calling for 100K Bitcoin, 200K 300K Bitcoin by the end of the year, they're just falling by the wayside, and now people are kicking the can down the road in terms of their predictions. But look, lengthening cycles, the evidence for it has been there for years, okay? And now it's time to find out what's going to happen. Will Bitcoin's market cycles lengthen? Will we put in a new market cycle all-time high or not? Now, technically, as measured from the halving, they already have lengthened, but the theory that when we developed this theory way back when, we looked at the market cycle bottoms, not the halving. And in order for Bitcoin's market cycle to lengthen, we still need to put in a new all-time high. As measured from where we are today, the cycle has unofficially lengthened by about 34 or 35 days, depending on what time zone you're in. But until we put in a new all-time high, we cannot say that the cycle has officially lengthened. The whole idea is that each cycle 1 was this blue line straight up. This was cycle 2, the yellow line was cycle 3, and then the purple line is cycle 4. And it seems like we have a long way to go. And some people, I think, misinterpret lengthening cycles and say, well, maybe we'll see a peak in January, right? Or February, and then it's technically lengthened. And yeah, that would be technically a lengthened cycle. But at the same time, the second cycle was a year and a half longer than the first one. And the third cycle was a year longer than the second one. So there's no reason that the cycle only extends by a month or two. I would say it's more likely that at the very least it extends for 6 more months. And that would be a lower bound estimate, I would think. Okay. So, I think time is on our side. I really do. I think we have a long way to go. Obviously, in the short term, there's some uncertainty. Can Bitcoin, get and stay above the bull market support band? Obviously, that's a big deal. If it can't in the short term, then we have a lot of work to do. But I don't think Bitcoin's going to go back to $10,000 like the bears are calling for. I respect their opinions. I just think they're wrong. Okay, I don't think Bitcoin's going to go back to 10K. I don't think Bitcoin's going to go back to even 20K for that matter. So let's see what happens as we head into 2022. Now, one of the interesting things, and this is what we were talking about back in April, is we were talking about we're ahead of schedule over here. And a lot of people didn't like that theory because I was bearish. And people were like, well, Ben's bearish. He's going to get wrecked. And look, we ended up coming back down. We had that 3 to 6 month lull. We even had another drop off in November. And now it really feels like we're at a place where we should be. Note that at one point in time, this cycle was actually ahead of cycle 2, and we did not keep pace with it. And then we said over here, just because we're ahead of schedule does not mean we're going to keep pace with it, and then we'll ultimately come back down and then trend up higher later on. And I think that's exactly what we're going to do. Now, what's interesting is plotting this on a linear scale. Okay, this is a logarithmic scale. This is a linear scale. Cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3. Cycle 4 is this little purple squiggly line that you can barely make out from the x-axis. And what's interesting is you might say, well, last cycle, once upon a time, you would have looked at the yellow line and said it's barely distinguishable from the x-axis until it had the final surge. And so my argument is that the cycle is lengthening, okay? And there's no reason Bitcoin had to have a parabolic Q4, because the idea that every market participant is just going to predict that we're going to have a December market cycle mania phase, we're all just going to sell and come back again and do it in 4 years, is just completely absurd, in my opinion. But I do think we will have a parabolic phase later on this cycle. We just haven't gotten there yet, okay? Imagine you were looking at this chart and you only had cycle 1 on here, and you were following cycle 2. You're like, oh, well, nothing's happening. Is this all that's going to happen? And then it had a first peak, and then it had a second peak later on, but it didn't come for several hundred days after this one. Imagine you're in cycle 3 and you're watching. It's like, well, it's not doing anything at the time that the last cycle did it. Why not? It's just going sideways. Because it took another year before it had that major final blow-off move. So people today are thinking that it had to peak in December of 2021 for some reason unbeknownst to me. But look, it's just doing what it's always done. As I said before, okay, I've said this many times, if Bitcoin had peaked in December, that would have meant that this time was different. I think a lot of people don't understand this. They think that this time is different because the cycles are lengthening. No, no, no. The cycles have always lengthened. It would have been more surprising to me if the cycle had ended in Q4 of 2021. So look, there's no guarantees about lengthening cycles. I mean, I don't know for sure what's going to happen as we continue to head out into 2022 and maybe even into 2023. But I would say that I am standing by lengthening cycles. I think it will play out. I think Bitcoin will go to new all-time highs, and I don't think we're going to have to wait until the next halving to do so. We're doing the same thing Bitcoin has always done, and that is experience a lengthened cycle and diminishing returns. And the purple line is where we are. I think we have a ways to go, and eventually we're going to see a parabolic rally by Bitcoin that's going to redefine what it means to own a single Bitcoin and be a new paradigm shift in the market. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Remember to check out the premium list holiday sale, lock in the low rate at intothecryptoverse.com. Finally, we do have t-shirts for sale as well. Everything's on sale. If you go to store.intothecryptoverse.com and enter Happy Holidays, you will get 20% off on a t-shirt. So if you need a t-shirt, there you go. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.